Brianna Harmon is a North Mount Pleasant resident, a mom, and a small business owner. Now she wants to become a Mount Pleasant Town Council member to tackle a host of issues. I speak exclusively with her for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Brianna Harmon, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you're a mom. You're a North Mount Pleasant resident for almost 20 years. And of course, I think you are a small business owner.
Yes.
And now,
these things.
all these things. And now you want to add Mount Pleasant Town Council to the many things that you're doing. So tell me, Brianna, why Mount Pleasant Town Council? Why now?
Well, I guess if you can't beat them, join them. No, I've, like you said, been living here for about 20 years. I have three sons growing up, all in different local Mount Pleasant schools. And, while the growth in the area has its pros, it also has has some cons, as well. And I would just like to try to keep Mount Pleasant just the charming, beautiful place that we moved to 20 years ago. And, I feel like the current administration has put more focus on the business and development and less focus on the residents of our town. And I'd like to shift that pendulum back to the residents and what our needs are first.
So where is the business and development that you see as far as pros and cons for Mount Pleasant that's hurting the town right now?
Okay, well, not far down the road from my house, there's a Costco.
Right.
There's a giant Jeep dealership. There is a trucking depot facility that has yet to be rented out. But once that is rented out, there'll be semi trucks traveling, up and down 17. There's 4 different public high schools, a senior living center, all within a mile and a half of this trucking facility, which creates a dangerous situation for residents. All these kids on bikes, biking to school, crossing the roads right there, and having 18-wheelers in and out is just a big concern for me as a parent, and just as a resident in general.
And I know all about North Mount Pleasant because I used to work out there a lot for the restaurant group that I used to work for. And I know with Costco, all of that, CVS, all that stuff over there.
Yeah, like, what are we doing here? What are we trying to accomplish?
And that area continues to grow. So how do you grow not only North Mount Pleasant, but Mount Pleasant with smart growth?
Well, for me, it's one, having the developers and these business owners cover our impact fees for what they are putting into our town. With the Carolina Park development, the developer got away with not paying any impact fees for a Costco, a depot, affordable housing units, all these thousands of residential homes. So, that is not smart. Fiscally speaking, that is, to me, just poor planning, poor business on that economic side. And then also what they're building, strip malls and gas stations alongside 17. Like, let's make it look a little better. We used to have an ordinance that required a 20 or 50-foot buffer between 17 and anything next to it, and what happened to that? Like, now we're just looking like a giant off ramp. It's not a good look. I would prefer it to kind of shadow something more like a Hilton Head or Kiowa or Seabrook, where everything is kind of hidden back behind a more of a natural setting, which is better for the environment, as well as being more aesthetically pleasing.
Well, let me ask you this, Dan. How do you protect the natural resources in Mount Pleasant and be able to keep the character of the town in place at the same time?
Well, I think those two go hand in hand. If you're protecting the natural resources, which is our coastal living, our waterways, our marshes, our live oaks, our pine trees, like our magnolias, we have a lot of those natural trees that are just getting taken down left and right. And for residents, it's a huge process to get a permit. And then for developers, they're just able to clear cut, and it just doesn't seem like it's an issue for them. So it seems like it's a little bit of a hypocrisy there too. So,
Ms. Harmon, let me ask you this then. What exactly do you think the developer should bring to the table when it comes to the future of Mount Pleasant?
honestly, I'm not blaming the developers because they're smart. They don't. They're going to get away with as much profit and development, make as much money as they can. And I think it's really in our leadership team that needs to address these concerns in the planning phase, and not after the fact, where right down the street from my house, we're putting in a culvert for over $1 million that's going to shut down a road for 4 months. And the town is now responsible for that because of flooding issues that are being seen in Carolina Park that weren't addressed in the planning phase. So now the town has to foot the bill for that.
And I love Carolina Park as well. I've been all over that area, North Mount Pleasant. Is there any type of flooding and mitigation plan together for that area and for the rest of Mount Pleasant?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it seems like it's more of a retroactive, reactive situation versus proactive and trying to do these studies prior to development. So the town just paid several $100,000 for a study to be done because of all this. Water is shooting out to one tiny little culvert that is 40, 50 years old. So that is what they're looking at fixing now, and they haven't even completed the study for it, which to me seems ridiculous, considering there's, I think, over 900 acres of stormwater that is flooding, or that goes to that particular culvert and into Alston Creek, which is a very small watershed. So it seems a little reactive versus proactive.
Well, let me ask you this, Dan. What ideal stormwater plan do you have?
Mine would just be to think about these things. And, we are in the low country. We are at water level. So the more we build and fill in wetlands and use fill dirt and get rid of our tree canopy, the less flood resiliency we are going to have for our future. And this is something that we need to be addressing now before it's too late. We already are lacking in our tree canopy, and we are really not thinking this far ahead, I feel like. Especially with the way things are getting developed. I mean, there's a lot of these garage dominiums. There's a lot of non-permeable surfaces going down all over Mount Pleasant. I mean, not just in the north, but in the south end of town too. That's that's just gonna. There's nothing to absorb the water that we will have. I mean, we are the low country. That's just part of living here, is having a high tide, and it's going to come into our yards and into our streets. That's just the nature of where we are.
And I'm looking right down there, Faison Road and all those other places in North Mount Pleasant. How many trees have been removed from that area thus far?
Oh, I have millions. It has to be millions. I mean, probably hundreds of millions. I have no idea. It's thousands of acres of trees, and not just here and there, completely clear cut, completely gone.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's sad.
Now, obviously, they're developing a whole lot in North and South Mount Pleasant. But where is all the infrastructure? I know that's a little silly question, but where is the infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that, again, we're in a more of a reactive mode than a proactive. I mean, Highway 41 has not been completed. That has been an issue that actually was funded 10 years ago in 2016,
Right.
With a transportation tax. And we still are nowhere near completing that project. It's still just a pipe dream. So I feel like, the county and the town really need to come together and figure out the Highway 41 and just work on some of our really big infrastructure issues for the safety of our residents, really.
So, as you know, right now, Charleston County is in the midst of getting public feedback on the transportation sales tax extension. Would you be in
Mm-hmm.
favor of that as far as an extension?
I would have to see a plan. I would have to see an approved plan by residents, something that is going to work for everyone. Because just charging another tax and funding something, which now they're saying is $100 million more than what we had budgeted for in 2016. I mean, what's the timeline here? And how much is it going to cost? We don't even have a plan in place. So I would like to see a plan before I would agree to another tax increase or extension.
And hypothetically speaking, Ms. Harmon, if they were to pass this extension, say through a referendum, what projects in your, well, I'm saying in your district, but in Mount Pleasant as a whole, should be included in this extension?
Definitely the Highway 41. If we could get, a flyover at 41 and 17, that would also be amazing. That's a big bottleneck situation. We get a lot of traffic every single day right there, and just yeah, I mean, as far as the county tax goes, I'm not sure what projects would be included with under the county jurisdiction. I do feel like also some of the settlement communities, we need to figure out how to protect those areas. And, the way Mount Pleasant is annexing them in, I know that it has been an issue over the years. We need to figure out how to work with the county with that as well. I don't know if that would be covered under a transportation tax, but we need to definitely we need to address that and make sure that those counties are taken care of, not just by, or I'm sorry, those areas are taken care of not just by the county, but as by Mount Pleasant leadership as well.
And you go right across 41, you have so many neighbors over there, Snowden, 6 Mile, 10 Mile. I'm looking down 17 past 41 now. How many of those particular communities have actually been annexed so far?
I don't know if any of the entire communities have been annexed in. I know they've annexed parcels here and there, and that just depends on the seller and what their motivations are to do that. But when that does happen and they're selling, obviously at the best possible use for that property, which many times is through a developer who's then going to subdivide the lot and sell, multiple homes, brand new homes in that community. And it's really taking away from what that cultural and heritage of that community is. It's not preserving the community as a whole, and I think that's where the discrepancy is. And that's something that I think Mount Pleasant needs to figure out with the county and with those residents of those areas, and all come together and have a good plan in place that's going to make everybody happy and also save those communities.
And when you look at all of these communities, 10 miles now, as I just mentioned, how many residents are in total in these settlement communities?
I do not know an exact number, but what I just became aware of because I ran for the special election back in March,
Right.
And what I found out then, which was just baffling to me, is that the residents that are in these Charleston County, on these Charleston County parcels,
Right.
are not able to vote for Mount Pleasant leadership, even though they are dealing with the Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is controlling what happens with their communities, and they are not even able to vote for leadership in these communities or for their community, which was kind of shocking to me.
And I know what's also shocking to a lot of people is that the whole situation right now with sewer and water, how many of those communities have access to that?
Well, to the sewer and water, that also is an area that doesn't make sense to me because what they're saying is, and this is my understanding, I'm not an expert on this,
Sure.
but basically, people that are in those, in Charleston County that want to annex in, it's for the ability to get sewer and water through Mount Pleasant Waterworks, right? Um, but if they don't annex in, then they have to be provided sewer and water by Mount Pleasant Waterworks. So I don't understand that myself. Definitely something that I'm going to have to look into because it's a very gray area for me. I don't understand why, like, if there's an additional cost to a property owner, if they have to do it that way, or how that works with the county and the water and sewer. So if you can, I don't know if you know how that works a little better than I do. I would love to hear how that, if you have any intel on that.
Well, let me ask you this question. Would it be ideal for those property owners to just get charged additionally in your mind?
I mean, I don't know. I would have to see how much that would be,
Sure,
and
sure,
what,
sure.
if what the difference is uh, with the being annexed into the town versus Charleston County would specifically be, as far as all the building codes and everything, and what the purpose of that project would be.
What should be the purpose of that, Miss Harmon, in your mind?
The purpose of a project?
Yes, ma'am. That project. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it just depends on, I mean, anybody who's getting annexed in, it could be for a developer trying to subdivide, a large parcel of 10 acres, or it could be just a single owner trying to annex in so his family can live there. So it really just depends. I think that's like a case by case basis with what they're proposing to use the property for.
And I want to touch on that in a little bit more on that just in a little bit. But I want to go back there to 17 and 41. Looking at it right now, there's also a CVS right there too.
Yeah, and a Walgreens
Across
across.
the street.
Yeah.
I went there all the time to get my Arizona green tea. But let
Oh,
me
there
ask,
you
yeah, I love drinking
go.
that. But if you can't get it flyover at 17 and 41, would you be in favor of just widening 41? And how many lanes would you widen that by?
Um, Gosh, and I think they're talking about the 434, or that plan. I mean, that does sound like probably the best way to go to alleviate traffic, because the Laurel Hill Parkway, it just doesn't make sense to me how that would assist in any type of traffic mitigation. It's just really just a parallel road to Bessemer, which is already in existence and doesn't add any value as far as cutting down traffic and congestion. So, but then you're tapping into the settlement communities if
Right.
you are widening. So, for me, I mean, if it's something that they need to do and they need to pay to use that property and pay, a significant amount of money, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars here to fix this road. Um, you know, Everybody's got a price, I'm sure. And if we need to pay more to be able to access that property, then maybe that's what we need to do. If that's what, if it is an option, I don't know. I don't know what, or if they've been offered money for properties that are adjacent to 41.
And how many of those properties are actually adjacent to 41 right now?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I
Okay.
would probably guess at least a dozen or so.
And I'm thinking about 41 now. A little bit of that just doesn't have enough sidewalk. Would you be in favor of having sidewalks up and down 41?
I definitely would want sidewalks just for the mobility of the town and kids using, sidewalks to get up down 41, because right now it is a very dangerous road to walk or bike on. So anything that could improve the safety of our town, I would be all for, and sidewalks would be definitely under that category of safety.
Safety, and obviously, as you know, that has been a big. Well, let me go back to Laurel Hill. Does the town have too much development already for Laurel Hill in your mind?
You mean to run a road through Laurel Hill?
And development just in general?
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. I don't believe that cutting into a park that was left for residents' enjoyment purposefully by the owner to be, a natural space for people to enjoy. The goal behind the road, I personally feel like it's more to bring in more development alongside that road. If it were to just be a road and that's that, I would be very surprised. So I do feel like there is probably an ulterior motive to also bring in more business opportunities.
What business opportunities are ideal for that area now?
What business opportunities would be ideal for residents or for developers?
Oh, just for that particular area.
I don't think any development would be ideal for that area. I'm totally against cutting into a park or tearing down any more trees unnecessarily. I think we have enough banks, we have enough gas stations. They're putting another gas station right at the entrance of Park West, which, they built this new all-American road to
right.
cut through, and you're like, why do we need a road? Oh, we need it for a gas station, which we also paid for. Okay, so I just heard the other day that we're also putting in a Zaxby's right nearby, right next to it. So fast food and another gas station, and then like a catty corner, there's another gas station, and then catty corner on either side are banks.
Oh yes.
So no buffers, you can see everything.
Oh yes, and there's a lot of restaurants out there in Oakland as well, at the Oakland Market and all that stuff too. But going back to Laurel Hill, I know that not only a road through the park, but now that they want the residents of Mount Pleasant to actually maintain the upkeep of the landscaping. As a resident, is that fair?
No, I don't think. The residents don't want the road through Laurel Hill Park. And if we got to decide on it, that wouldn't be something wanted or warranted by residents. Again, it doesn't alleviate the traffic, and it's tearing up one of our beautiful our only natural county park on the north end of town. Our only park, really, on the north end of town. So, I would be against that project up and down, no matter what. I mean, just unnecessary.
And obviously, throughout this particular interview, you talked a lot about e-bikes. And as you know, Mount Pleasant has faced growing concerns about unsafe juvenile behavior on e-bikes, according to WCBD. And local middle schools are now working to solve the problem. I know that Moutrie Middle School, right there on Coleman, is working with the town of Mount Pleasant and the school district to have all students register their bikes at, obviously, when they're in school. And let's talk about the background, because the Mount Pleasant Police Department said that at least 79 incident reports involving e-bikes have took place in the past couple of months. The department says many people on e-bikes fail to stop for blue lights, and it's dangerous for officers to actually pursue riders, as you know. Now, Mount Pleasant Town Council is actually working to enhance safety protocols alongside police officers. And in fact, back in January of 2022, Mount Pleasant has seen 86 collisions involving bicycles or e-bikes, according to the town's police department. Let me ask you this. When it comes to e-bikes, and I know you're a parent as well, Ms. Harmon, should e-bikes have an insurance for damage that they could do to a car or a person, for that matter?
That I feel like that would be more of a state legislative move. E-bikes, my kids have all had them. We just sold my middle schooler's e-bike, because they did ban them from, him driving to middle school, and they are super dangerous. I've heard a lot of kids getting hurt. My oldest son just had a terrible injury on a dirt bike out at a track, so that wasn't in Mount Pleasant. But bikes in general for me are kind of a sore subject right now, as he's still homebound, dealing with that injury. But yeah, the e-bikes, that's a tough call. For me as a parent, they make me nervous. But they also allowed my kids all summer, before they got banned and before Mount Pleasant police started really, hammering down on this. It did allow my kids to go to local businesses and grab food if I was working, or out, like, it did allow them that mobility to go around town where they wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And I know people are like, oh, well, they have bikes, they should do that. Well, it's 100 degrees out and it's blazing sun because we have no more tree canopy, so they're on sidewalks that are just, it's very, very hot in the summers around here. So it did allow them to be more mobile and get around this summer. But unfortunately, with the way everything is happening, and the people complaining about them, and the fact that they are just inherently very fast and dangerous, and Mount Pleasant police cracking down, a lot of the kids that I know are selling them if they haven't sold them already. So I feel like it's kind of it's definitely shifting in the direction of there's going to be less and less e-bikes, I believe, around town. So.
And for those people who still have e-bikes, should those be registered with the police department or the Department of Motor Vehicles?
Again, I feel like that's a state law concern. It wouldn't hurt. But these kids that are driving them are not 16. So I don't know how that would work with having them register and then having to get a license. What my thought was initially when I heard, all this, was to, have the Mount Pleasant Police Department maybe do a licensing course for kids on e-bikes, that requires them to learn about the rules of the road and learn about what happens if a police does pull you over, or, because a lot of kids just don't understand the rules of the road. They're just biking like they would bike a normal bike, and these are fast, expensive, dangerous vehicles, basically, that they're riding around town, and they do need to learn. If their parents aren't teaching them the exact rules of the road, I believe, either way, I believe like a Mount Pleasant PD course on, biking, which we used to have to go to traffic school when I was growing up, and you had to, even for riding a regular bicycle, like you had to learn where to stop and, when it's your turn to go. And I feel like something like that would be amazing to have in Mount Pleasant, or just if we could do it through Charleston County schools like they do with the swimming lessons. Right. It would be great, because there are a lot of bikes, e-bikes, golf carts, all the things here. So.
Speaking of, obviously, the police department, as you know, they just got I believe, a 4% wage increase by the Mount Pleasant Town Council last week, Tuesday. Do you think that went far enough in your mind?
I do not. I mean, I think we are well below the average, national average, and we're also lower end of local police departments and first responders. So to me, that, it's a step in the right direction, but I feel like we could do better. They deserve more for all the work they do in Mount Pleasant.
How should the town of Mount Pleasant assess the town's pay ranges with the market analysis of what's going on right now?
Well, we are an expensive town to live in. And if, areas like Goose Creek, which are more affordable to live in, are paying first responders more, and we are losing first responders to these areas and these departments because it is more of an attractive package. It's lower cost of living and you're making more money. So I think we do need to be more competitive and get our first responders taken care of, because they're the ones taking care of us every single day. And again, all this goes back to safety for me of our current residents. And I believe we need to look at making our first responders, more better taken care of than they currently are.
So how many first responders has the town of Mount Pleasant lost to Goose Creek or Somerville or North Charleston?
I don't know how many exactly to Goose Creek. I want to say last year we lost, and this is, I think, the entire attrition. So I believe there was like one retired. I think we lost about 22. Yeah.
What ideal administrative practices should be implemented so that the town of Mount Pleasant can maintain its competitiveness within the market and the region?
I feel like, again, better pay. And maybe some, daycare incentives or other incentives that would take care of them in other ways, not necessarily, financially, but housing or childcare incentives, local restaurants, offering discounted rates if we could. Just doing, and obviously listening to what the first responders want. They may not want to live in Mount Pleasant. So I know our current administration is really pushing like for affordable housing for first responders to live in. But, to me, I'd rather have the cash in my bank account and make my own decisions versus being told, oh, you can, we'll give you a little discount if you want to live in Mount Pleasant in a, just not in your desired type of home.
Well, let me ask you one last question. I know you have to run too, but
No, it's okay. Let me hold
yes,
on.
ma'am.
Let me just plug in my. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Let me ask you this: is it affordable housing or is it workforce housing that the town really needs for first responders?
I mean, I don't know what the difference is, to be honest. I feel like those are kind of the same, along the same lines. The affordable housing, to me, is really not even that affordable. It's going to be the last affordable housing unit I saw on Zillow for sale was listed at, I think, around $340,000. And if you took a look at what our first responders were currently making when they just did the wage study,
Right.
I mean, that even covering that amount, I don't understand how they would be able to afford that, especially with the interest rates where they are right now. And then that was a affordable housing unit that was what the Gregory Ferry. I think they're like 5 or 10 years old now. So they're building 100 new ones. Right. So I would imagine a new affordable housing unit would probably be in the $400,000 to $500,000 range, which that seems crazy to me as being an affordable option for most people, especially first responders or teachers. I feel like we just need to be paying these people more.
Yes, ma'am. Well, how many affordable housing units do you need to keep up with this growth that's coming to Mount Pleasant?
It's an impossible feat to accomplish. I mean, like I said, we have 100 that are under construction right now. Right. But we still had a couple available that hadn't sold yet. So, I mean, are people even buying these? And then we have to, the deed restrictions on them are not as enticing to me, like just as a business owner and just as an investment side of things. These homes are not as as valuable or attractive as something that doesn't require the deed restrictions and approvals to get into them. So for me, it kind of is an unfair incentive in some ways.
What should those ideal incentives be?
Again, I mentioned, well, better pay for one.
Okay.
That's the most important thing, is just paying people what they deserve and a competitive rate for this area. And then, and a childcare incentive. I know childcare as a mom, I had to quit my full-time job about 12 years ago, because the childcare around here was so expensive. It was not going to be feasible for me to put two children in childcare to work full time. I would have just been barely breaking even. So, and then when our third came along, it obviously wasn't even an option anymore. So, to have our first responders or, healthcare workers or people, or teachers even be able to have some type of daycare stipend or something like that for a local daycare. I feel like that would be a pretty good incentive. I would have loved to have something like that, if I were in that position when my children were in that little age group.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, Brianna Harmon, thank you so much for your time again. Welcome to Quintin Spokes Ups.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate you.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Anytime.